Welcome back to Mind of Messiah Ministries. My name is Sharon Cluck. I so appreciate you stopping by. This teaching is about angelic warfare. You do not want to miss this. Please leave us your comments. Tell us your angelic experiences, what God has done in your life. This is a supernatural teaching, and I so hope that you will stay to the end. Please give us a thumbs up, a like, a share. It would be greatly helpful if you would subscribe. It would mean a lot to us, to this channel, and to getting this word out. God bless you, and we will see you at the end. Please leave your comments below. We want to hear what God is doing in your life, too. So I'm going to read this to you first out of the King James Version, and then later I'm going to read it to you through the Book of Jasher. It's not a long chapter, so it's not like we're going to just read the whole, we are going to read the whole chapter twice, but it's only 20 verses. So you're going to see the contrast between the scriptures and what's in Jasher. And we're going to learn a lot from both of them. We're going to put them together. We're going to weigh why we see them so differently from the scriptures to what we see in the Apocrypha. So Genesis 33:1. And Jacob lifted up his eyes, and he looked, and behold, Esau came, and with him 400 men. And he divided the children unto Leah and unto Rachel and unto the two handmaidens. And he put the handmaidens and their children foremost, and Leah and her children after, and Rachel and Joseph hindermost. In this previous chapter, it looks like Jacob did this the night before, when he was left alone to wrestle with the angels. So it looks like from chapter 32 that he divided the camp, sent them over the wadi, and sent them on ahead of him. But after he sees Esau coming, he goes back out and he goes before them. He's not behind them. He's going before them. So Jacob would not have waited until he saw the danger approaching before providing for his family's safety. And he passed over before them, and he bowed himself to the ground. He didn't just bow. He bowed himself to the ground 7 times until he came near to his brother. And even though he has divided his family and his flock, he gets out in front of them as he approaches Esau and this 400-man army. If Esau intends to come to meet Jacob for good, if this is just a thing of hospitality to go out and meet those that are coming, then why does he have an army with him? Verse 4, and Esau ran to meet him and embraced him and fell on his neck. We're going to look at that phrase, fell on his neck, closely, and kissed him, and they wept. The phrase fell on his neck is a loaded phrase. There's a lot more going on in that moment than just a simple hug. The Hebrew phrase is emotionally loaded, covenant-coded, and used only in moments of deep reconciliation, overwhelming affection, or just the collapse of a long, hard tension. That's the only way in Scripture that falling on your neck is used. If Esau's intent was to kill Jacob, then why all the emotion involved in this embrace? This is not casual. It's a full-body emotional collapse into someone's neck. The verb nafal means to fall. It's physical and it's dramatic. It implies rushing forward, losing composure, clinging, and overwhelming emotion. It's the opposite of a formal embrace. It's just raw. We see this phrase used again in scriptures between Joseph and Benjamin when they find each other in Egypt. They have this wonderful embrace and they fall on each other's neck. When we see it between Jacob and Joseph when they're reunited, the father thought his son is dead, and when they reunite, they fall on each other's neck. And again in the New Testament, we see this with the father waiting for the prodigal to come home. And when that prodigal, he sees that prodigal, when he runs to him, they fall on each other's neck. These two brothers have lived under a prophetic conflict from the womb. So in the King James Version, it appears as though there has been a deep reconciliation. For Jacob, Esau's action is completely unexpected. What brought this on? Well, the book of Jasher shows that this embrace is driven by fear and not that of true reconciliation. If this is true, then the hug is a survival instinct on the part of Esau. It's not reconciliation from Esau's heart. So what it really is a divine intimidation producing a temporary humiliation. Verse 5, and he lifted up his eyes and he saw the women and the children, and he said, whose are these with thee? And he said, oh, these are the children that God has graciously given to me. So Jacob realizes that all these children are gifts of God. Then the handmaidens came near, and their children, and they bowed themselves. All this time, they are bowing as if they are revering Esau. And Leah also with her children came near, and bowing themselves. And after, then came Joseph near, and Rachel, and they bowed themselves. And he said, what meaneth thou all of this drove which we met? And he said, these are to find favor and grace in the sight of my Lord. So Esau's asking, remember all the flocks that Jacob sent, and he put a space between each one of them, and he just kept sending flocks and droves of animals to Esau to gain his favor. Jacob believes that he needed to find grace in his brother's eyes. This word means kindness, favor. And he doesn't expect grace to come freely, so he's willing to pay for it. Verse 9, and Esau said, I have enough, my brother. Keep that thou hast unto thyself. Enough, the word enough in the Strong's, is abundance, rank, quality, and plenty. So God's blessed the seed of Abraham, both of those, even the one that's not keeping covenant, Esau. Verse 10, and Jacob said, nay, I pray thee, if now I have found grace in your sight, then receive my present at my hand. For therefore I have seen thy face as though it has been seen of the face of God, and thou wast pleased with me. Jacob is so relieved. He compares seeing Esau without a battle. That's how much he expected a battle, as seeing the face of God. Maybe he knows that if it weren't for God, this would not have happened. Verse 11, take, I pray thee, my blessing or my presence that's brought to thee, because God had dealt graciously with me and because I have enough. And he urged him, and he took it. Of course, he took it. It's Esau. Esau took it. His history shows that he's a person driven by possessions. So this is no small gift. We read the list of livestock that was sent to Esau before Jacob. And this was a huge gift worth great deals of value. I can't even imagine what the value would be in our time. Verse 12, and he said, let us take our journey and let us go, and I'm going to go before thee. So Jacob is got all of his people together, but Esau's coming now. He wants to take charge. He wants to go before him and lead him back. So Esau intends to stay with Jacob as he continues his journey. Well, this was actually Hebrew hospitality. You were expected to go out to meet a guest and to escort them to your home. However, that was not Esau's original intent. Jacob is not headed to Esau's home, but he doesn't want to tell Esau that. You know, we don't have to tell everything that we know. Some things we have to keep to ourselves. If God's given us instructions, we don't have to tell everybody. Verse 13, and he said unto him, my Lord knoweth that the children are tender, and that the flocks and the herds with the young are with me. And if men should overdrive them even one day, all the flocks are going to die. So let my Lord, I pray thee, pass over before his servant, and I'll just lead on softly, according as the cattle that goeth before me. Oh, and the children be able to endure until I come unto my Lord. And Seir, he's telling him he's going to go where he is. That's in Edom. Verse 15, and Esau said, let me now leave with thee some of the folk that are with me. And he said, oh, what needeth it? Let me find grace in your sight, oh my Lord. He keeps calling him Lord. And Jacob does not intend to go to Edom or Seir. God has instructed him to go to Canaan, and he's not willing to share that information with Esau, nor is he willing to allow Esau's servants to assist him in his journey. Instead, he tells Esau that he's just going to meet him in Seir. Verse 16, so Esau returned that day on his way unto Seir, and Jacob journeyed to Succoth, and he built a house, and he made booths for his cattle. Therefore, the name of the place is called Succoth. And we see that when they come out of Egypt, that's one of the places that they stop, is Succoth. And that word is like the feast of Sukkot, tabernacles. Verse 18, and Jacob came to Shalem, the city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan. And when he came from Padan Haran, and pitched his tent before the city. So he's not in Padan Haran, he's coming from Padan Haran, which is where Laban was, and he's now coming to Shechem, and we hear about Shechem all the time. From now on in the scriptures, we're going to hear about Shechem. And he pitched his tent before the city, and he brought a parcel of land where he had spread his tent at the hand of the children of Hamor, Shechem's father, for 100 pieces of money. So he's now made a legal purchase in the promised land. This is just like Abraham did when he purchased the cave at Machpelah. So they go back to these purchases in the promised land to prove ownership all the time. Verse 20, and he erected there an altar, and he called it Elohe Israel, the mighty God of Israel. The mighty God of Israel. We sing that stuff all the time. The mighty God of Israel. So this is Jacob's first altar after arriving home. He's not built altars in Padan Haran. So he's been good 20 years with Laban, but he's never built an altar because it's not God's land. He's building this one now because he's in the covenant land. He's in covenant identity and a covenant relationship. All of those things have lined up. He's in the right place at the right time in the right relationship. So he's building an altar. And the moment he steps back into Canaan, he settles near Shechem. The first thing that he does is to reestablish worship. They offer up sacrifices on these altars, and he is reestablishing the worship that his grandfather Abraham had established previously. This is a sign that the exile is over. The covenant is now active. Jacob is restored. He is acknowledging God as the one who brought him home. And this altar is Jacob saying, I'm back where I belong. The text says he named it El Rohi Israel, God, the God of Israel. This is massive. Jacob is using his new name, publicly identifying with the God who renamed him and declaring that the God who wrestled with him, blessed him, and restored him to his own God. This is the first time Jacob uses the name Israel as a spiritual identity marker. So he's built an altar and he calls it after his God and his name, the new name God gave him. This is to the God of Israel. In this moment, he steps into the name God gave him. He is calling himself the name that God gave him. He's no longer Jacob, the younger brother. This altar contrasts sharply with Shechem. Shechem is a Canaanite city. It's filled with pagan worship and is a spiritual dangerous territory. So Jacob plants an altar right there as if to stake a claim. And this land belongs to the God of Israel. He's staking a claim. He's making a statement. I don't care how much evil is around me. This land belongs to Yahweh. It's a prophetic act, a foreshadowing of the future conquest under Joshua, where Shechem becomes a covenant renewed site. Jacob is doing in seed farm what Israel will do later in the full farm. This altar mirrors Abraham's altar. So Abraham built altars at Shechem in Genesis 12, 6 through 7. He built them at Bethel, which Jacob has already done, and built them at Hebron. So Jacob is reenacting Abraham's steps. By building an altar at Shechem, Jacob is stepping into Abraham's covenant pattern, reaffirming the promises given to his grandfather, and he's showing continuity of the covenant line. It's a restoration of Abraham's rhythm of worship. He's tapping into Grandpa's way of doing things, who had the covenant with God originally. In verse 22 is Jacob's declaration that God, who met him, renamed him, protected him, and restored him, is now the God that he publicly serves, and he's made a marker to say so, and that he is finally living as Israel. Now, let's put a little personality and excitement into this story. The Book of Jasher provides deeper insight into the characters of the patriarchs, and many of these details are not apparent in the canonical scriptures. Jasher gives us a better understanding of the struggles of the patriarchs and their incredible, miraculous victories, and they do have some. The details in Jasher gives us insight into how God rescues his people through angelic intervention, bringing even more glory to our great God and King. He does that for us today still. Esau didn't just decide to forgive and forget with Jacob. He had lots of angelic persuasion, which altered his direction. In Jasher, we are told what happened during the night when Jacob was wrestling with the angel. So when Jacob's wrestling with the angel, there's a war going on in the desert between Esau and the angelic host. This story of Jacob's angelic rescue is filled with details that thrilled me when I first read it. It comes from Jasher 32, starting with the verse 26. So let me do a very short review up to this moment. I'm going to go back and talk about where we've come from, where we're going. So as a young man, Jacob and his brother Esau had a feud over who should receive the family birthright. And when Esau threatened to kill Jacob, their mother Rebekah instructed him to escape to Uncle Laban's house in Syria. And she believed he would be safe there from the fury of his brother's wrath. From the onset, Laban mistreated Jacob. As the years went by, they came to distrust one another greatly. And Jacob labored for Laban for over 20 years. Even though he was family, he was treated like a servant. So we read in Genesis 31, "Yet your father has treated me by changing my wages 10 times. However, God has not allowed him to hurt me." That's in Genesis 31:7. Jacob endured many tests and hardships during this time, and throughout this season of his life, God worked wonders in his heart. So we covered these details of Jacob's journey in the previous chapters. In Jacob's life, he has several angelic encounters. However, I find this one incredibly fascinating. This chapter begins with Jacob fleeing from Laban. They parted on bad terms. God spoke to Jacob, instructed him to return home to his father. And Jacob was the heir to the promise made to his grandfather, Abraham. He was blessed with the family birthright and was being sent back to the land that God had promised him. So God assured Jacob that he would accompany him on this journey. When Jacob first arrived at Laban's, he had only the clothes on his back and his staff, and we learned how that happened in previous chapters as well. Now he's returning as a wealthy man with a huge family and all these servants and numerous flocks. He has 2 wives, Rachel and Leah, and they have 11 children that are traveling with him. He feared that Esau, his brother, would come out to meet him upon learning of his return to the land, and he was right. This filled him with great distress and concern for his life and his family's safety as well. He knew that his brother had not lost his passion or desire to take his life. Laban, who was angry with Jacob, sent messengers ahead to Esau to inform him of Jacob's return. And Laban's anger toward Jacob just refueled Esau's hatred towards Jacob. He had never relented from his vow to kill his brother. So when Jacob's messenger reached Esau, this is what his reply was to them was. So when Jacob sends out all these messengers to go to Esau, this is what he replies. And we have this in Jasher 32, 9 through 12. And Esau answered them with pride and contempt. And he said unto them, surely I have heard, and truly it has been told unto me what Jacob has done to Laban, who exalted him in his house. That's what he's been told. And gave him his daughter for wives. And he begat sons and daughters, and abundantly increased in wealth and riches in Laban's house through his means. He has been told that Jacob increased because of Laban, and that he was honored in Laban's house when he was really treated as a servant. So according to Esau, Laban has said he exalted Jacob in his house. Verse 10, and when he saw that his wealth was abundant and his riches great, he fled with all belonging to him from Laban's house. And he led Laban's daughters away from the face of their father as captives taken by the sword, without telling him of it. He has been told that Jacob's wives were forced to leave their father. You know, this reminded me so much of a typical narcissistic person. Anything that they are doing, they accuse somebody else of doing. It's just typical. It's what we call gaslighting. They try to make you think that you're the perpetrator. Instead, you're the victim. Verse 11, and not only to Laban has Jacob done thus, but also unto me has he done so, and has twice supplanted me. And shall I be silent? Now therefore, I have this day come with my camps to meet him, and I will do unto him according to the desires of my heart. Jacob knew he would be confronted with a life and death situation, not only for himself, but also for his entire family. His sole hope was to call upon God, the God of his ancestors, Abraham and Isaac. And that was his only chance of survival. He decided to send his family and his servants ahead of him. Desperate to seek the face of God, he needed to be alone. He had encountered God in this place, Bethel, once before. He trusted that God would appear to him again in the midst of his distress. So Jacob was committed during his time of prayer. He fought all night in the spirit for himself, his family, and the destiny passed down to him from his ancestors. The outcome of his passionate, fervent prayer exceeded Jacob's, even his imagination. He never imagined how amazing this encounter would be and how difficult it would be for him. The angel of the Lord himself appeared. So when I looked up commentaries on this, many believe that this angel was a pre-incarnate Christ. I think that too. This time of prayer was so intense that Jacob and the angel wrestled. It was so literal that Jacob sustained physical injuries from this encounter. By morning, Jacob had prevailed. During this struggle, Jacob was struck on the hip and would walk with a limp from the day forward. And I can't even imagine this kind of spiritual warfare. It's beyond anything that I've ever experienced or even know of. I don't know anybody that's ever had an encounter like this. And this was the night that God changed Jacob's name to Israel. He had prevailed with God. Things that happen in the spirit may manifest in the natural, in the physical. We should expect that. We should expect the things that begin to happen that we've been praying for is because something is going on in the spirit. Things are happening in the spirit. We have no idea how much angelic warfare is happening on our behalf every single day to bring about the answers to the prayers that we ask God to accomplish. So this just blows me away. How does one prevail with God? Jacob's character has been changed drastically during his many life experiences. Now he's encountered the angel of the Lord face to face. When God transforms our character, he gives us a new name. And we know this because the scriptures tell us that a new name is written down in glory for each one of us. And nobody knows that except Yeshua. It is our unique name. That night, as Jacob wrestled with the angel, he reminded Yahweh that he was obeying his instructions by returning to his family. He had been obedient, and it seemed like it would cost him his life. He expected God to protect him on this journey, but what he saw and what he heard was filling him with doubt and with fear. We got to be careful what we see, because we got to know whose report we're going to believe. We refer to living for Jesus as a walk of faith. We cannot allow ourselves to believe solely what our physical eyes perceive. And anymore, we don't know if what we see is real at all. And this has become increasingly apparent in our times. We have no reliable way of knowing whether what we see is truly real. We can't believe our eyes. Therefore, we must rely even more on the Word of God. It's the only thing that we can absolutely trust to be the truth. Jacob has sent his servants ahead of him, carrying gifts for Esau to appease him. That approach proved effective for Jacob in the past, but Esau wasn't interested this time. He wanted to kill his brother. Instead, the servants returned with a really grim report for Jacob. Esau's on his way. He has 400 warriors with him, and he's more determined to kill you than ever. How would you like to get a report like that? Sometimes we must reject what we see and hear. We must resist believing malicious reports from the enemy, no matter who is delivering the news. So he had faithful servants delivering that news, but the report itself was evil. The report itself came from the enemy, came from Esau, who wanted to kill him. So no matter who brings you a report, we have to ask God. Doesn't matter how close this person is to me, how much I trust them or love them. Is this the truth? Is this what you're really saying, God? And that's why we ask, whose report will you believe? We should trust the report of the Lord. What did God say? Well, he told Jacob that he was going to return to his father, Isaac. God promised Jacob that his descendants would be like the sands of the sea. Well, how can that happen if he dies? Jacob could battle through this if his faith were strong enough to hold on to God's word. And it wasn't what the servants reported that was most important. What God had said mattered more. We all have our battles. You must remember and reflect on the God who has spoken to you personally and through his written word. And that will sustain you through every single trial. So Jasher 32:26-27 says, And Jacob tarried there that night, and during the whole night he gave his servants instructions concerning the forces of his children. And the Lord heard the prayer of Jacob on that day. And the Lord then delivered Jacob from the hand of his brother Esau. And the Lord sent 3 angels. If you read my book, you remember this story. 3 angels. Angels of heaven. And they went before Esau, and they came to him. This is how God delivered Jacob. He didn't reveal his plan to Jacob or how he was going to carry it out. So sometimes God's working on our behalf, and we have no idea how he's doing it, but he's working, and this was a magnificent example of that. God certainly had a plan, and he was about to execute it without Jacob's even being aware of it. God never ceases working on our behalf. Even when we don't see it, he's working. We sing that song, even when we don't see it, he's working. He's still working. So God doesn't need to reveal how he works on your behalf. He simply does it. The Lord sent 3 angels from heaven. Only these 3 angels could appear as 2,000 men. It's really hard to imagine this. When we read the scriptures that said there's more with us than against us, if 3 angels can appear as 2,000, can you imagine how many that 100 angels could actually be? They can divide out and be more than what they are. We've heard stories about the Six-Day War in Israel in 1967. There was no way in the natural sense that Israel could have won this war. They were outnumbered and under-equipped militarily. So here's a short paragraph to give you an idea of how God intervened. One Israeli infantry recruit on patrol with one other soldier reported an encounter with a truck loaded with 18 well-armed Egyptian soldiers. The 2 Israelites, equipped with inadequate weapons, believed they faced certain death. However, the Arabs, looking panic-stricken, did not fire on them and complied immediately when the Israeli soldiers shouted, "Hands up!" So later, he asked an Egyptian sergeant why they hadn't shot at the Israeli soldiers. And he replied, "My arms froze. They became paralyzed. My whole body was paralyzed, and I don't know why." But we know why. To God be the glory. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. So how did God save Jacob? Verse 29. And these angels appeared unto Esau and his people as 2,000 men, riding upon horses, furnished with all sorts of war instruments. So they're not just 2,000 men riding on horses. Can you imagine them thundering across the desert, galloping towards Esau? They didn't just lollygag towards him. They are thundering towards Esau and his 400 men. And they have all kinds of war instruments. You know, we talk about how well equipped America is and that we use weapons that nobody else has. Angels. Heaven has weapons that nobody can even imagine. The devil has nothing on God's armory. And they appeared in the sight of Esau and all of his men to be divided into 4 camps with 4 chiefs to them. There are 3 angels appearing as 2,000 men, divided into 4 camps with 500 men each. Esau had a total of 400 men accompanying him with the intent to kill Jacob. That's a lot of men to take down one person, along with his servants of family. Now, Esau's forces are outnumbered by each one of these angelic camps that he's destined to confront. It states that angelic warriors are equipped with various weapons of war, and I just found this amusing because I've had the privilege to capture a glimpse of Yahweh's armory, of the things he has in his arsenal. The armies of Satan possess nothing compared to the armies of God and their weaponry. And one camp went on, and they found Esau coming with 400 men toward the brother Jacob. And this camp ran towards Esau. So they're running, thundering towards him and his people. And it terrified them. And Esau fell off the horse in alarm. And all his men separated from him in that place, for they were greatly afraid. A camp is roughly the size of a half regiment of our modern army. It's a group of warriors. The angels' army charged on horseback, thundering towards Esau and his men, and all Esau's men, they just fled. They're terrified. They fled. The Book of Jasher reveals in several places how the loud noises of these Hebrew tribes and angels are utilized in warfare. No wonder the enemy was terrified. They're not only thundering towards them well-equipped with arms, they're also making all kinds of loud noises. The ground shook, the dust flew everywhere, horses snorted and warriors shouted, and the noise alone would have completely unnerved them. And this was clearly a surprise attack. Esau's army certainly wasn't prepared to face this level of resistance as they went to find Jacob. The Book of Jasher recounts numerous tales of battle skirmishes, and it reveals how the screeches of warriors like Judah and Issachar are so alarmed that they debilitate entire armies. by their noise. You know, we've heard of frequency warfare, and I wonder if this wasn't early frequency warfare. We don't know what they sound like, but they were very effective in battle. Perhaps the tribes of Israel learned these terrifying battle cries from these intimidating angels. Maybe the angels taught the armies of Israel how to use these sounds when they were in battle. You know, when you do a karate chop, you yell. Catch your opponent off guard. That's what was going on. And the whole of the camp shouted after them when they fled from Esau, and all of the warlike men. So these are angels. They answered, saying, surely we are the servants of Jacob, who is the servant of God. They are exalting Jacob in the eyes of his brother Esau. They are saying, we are the servants of Jacob, who is the servant of the Most High God. And who then can stand against us? Because we represent Jacob. And Esau said to them, oh then, my Lord and brother Jacob is your Lord, whom I have not seen these 20 years. And now that I have this day come to see him, do you treat me in this manner? Suddenly, Esau conveniently refers to Jacob as his Lord. And the angels answer him, as the Lord liveth, were it not for Jacob, of whom you speaketh thy brother, we had not let one remaining from thee and thy people, but only on account of Jacob. We will do nothing to them. And this camp passed from Esau and his men, and it went away. And Esau and his men had gone from them about a league, when the second camp came towards him, all sorts of weapons. And they also did unto Esau as the men had in the first camp, the angels had done to them. And when they had left it to go on, behold, the third camp came towards him, and they were all terrified. And Esau fell off of his horse, and the whole camp cried out and said, surely we are the servants of Jacob. So as the third camp comes towards Esau, and Esau falls off his horse, all of the men in Esau's camp are yelling, we are the servants of Jacob. Don't hurt us. We belong to Jacob too. Oh, who is the servant of God? And who can stand against us? I find this entertaining. Now Esau has faced 3 armies that came against him, and each one's larger than the army that he has with him. And they're all on horseback, and they're armed to the teeth. And Esau again answered them, saying, oh, then Jacob my Lord and your Lord is my brother, and for 20 years I have not seen his countenance, and hearing this day that he was coming. So I heard he was coming. I went this day to meet him. Do you treat me in this manner? I just think, you know, God knows our motives. He knows our heart. You're not fooling him with your words. And the angels weren't fooled by what Esau was saying either. And he said unto him, as the Lord liveth, were not for Jacob thy brother, as thou sayest, we would not left a remnant from thee and thy men. But on account of Jacob, of whom thou speakest, being thy brother, we will not meddle with thee or thy men. Did you know the angels were speaking for Jacob? And the angels will speak for you as well. They're representing him. In the spirit, the angels are saying to the enemy, back off. This is one of mine. This is one of mine. Back off. This is how angels fight for you and me. They're out there advocating for us. They say, I have come on behalf of my brother or sister. They come on your behalf. They have gone to war for you because you serve God. They're battling for you. And the third camp also passed from them, and he still continued his road with his men towards Jacob. When the fourth camp came towards him, and they also did unto him as the men as the other had done. And when Esau beheld the evil which the 4 angels had done to him and to his men, he became greatly afraid of his brother Jacob. Now, who's afraid of who? And he went to meet him in peace. This night, before Jacob prayed all night, because he was afraid of his brother. Now the tables have turned. Angelic assistance in warfare. And Esau is the one who is afraid of Jacob. What difference a night of prayer can make in our lives. Jacob may not have a physical army like Esau does, but he possesses a band of angels that can never be defeated by Esau's natural men. Hallelujah! The Lord lives. And remember this, only 3 angels were sent to fight for Jacob, yet they appeared as 2,000 warriors. No wonder the word of God says that one can chase 1,000 and put 10,000 to flight. Bless the Lord forevermore. Can you see why this story excites me? I just love this story. So Esau went to meet Jacob peacefully. His anger has been calmed by the angelic assistance sent to fight for Jacob. And Esau, this is out of Jasher 32:4. It tells us this. Esau concealed his hatred against Jacob. He concealed it. He's not being honest. Because he was afraid of his life on account of his brother Jacob, and because he imagined that the 4 camps that he had lighted upon were Jacob's servants. Every time I read this account, I shake my head in amazement. Jacob wrestled in prayer all night with the angel. The response was that God sent 4 camps of troops against Esau, Jacob's enemy. Only God knew what would change Esau's heart and mind. God sent angels to intimidate the enemy. I love that. Satan loves to intimidate the children of God. Know that even when you don't see it, God will push him back on your behalf. Our God is a man of war, and he cannot be defeated. No weapon that's formed against you, Isaiah 54:17. No weapon that's formed against thee shall prosper, and every tongue that shall rise against thee in judgment thou shalt condemn. This is the heritage of the servants of the Lord, and their righteousness is of me, says the Lord. I have seen angels manifest in response to our prayers. They often come for protection, sometimes for reassurance, sometimes for comfort, as well as to rescue us. They're present whether you realize it or not. Jacob did not understand why Esau approached in peace. It resulted from his wrestling and his spiritual warfare. You are surrounded by a myriad of angels all the time. They're waiting to assist you. You do not command them. Jacob did not command these angels, but he prayed, and when he prevailed, God sent these troops. Jasher 32, Esau's embrace. Let's go back to where he fell on his neck. Esau's embrace is driven by terror, not affection. In Jasher, it's telling us Esau comes intending to kill Jacob. God sends 4 companies of angels who appear as terrifying warriors. And Esau and his men, they're just struck with fear. Esau's heart melts. His aggression collapses. And he suddenly treats Jacob with honor in that framework. Esau's falling on Jacob's neck is now submission, fear-driven softness, forced de-escalation, and it's a survival instinct. It's not reconciliation from Esau's heart. It's a divine intimidation producing a temporary humiliation. Jasher is explicit. Esau's emotions changed because he's overwhelmed by supernatural power, not because he's repented or he's forgiven. Genesis describes the gesture. So we're going to look at the difference. Genesis describes the gesture, but Jasher explains the cause. Genesis gives the external actions. There's running, there's falling on the neck, there's kissing, there's weeping. It's what's seen with the eye. Jasher gives the internal motivation. There's fear, shock, and divine intervention. Jasher describes emotional collapse under angelic pressure. So we talked about this before. The scripture would go on and on. We'd never get through the Bible. We'd have too much to read if all the details that could be written were written in that book. It gives us bullet points, as we talked about before. So the gesture looks like reconciliation in Genesis, but the engine behind it is different. The two readings are not contradictory. They operate on different layers. Canonical Genesis focuses on the visible movement. Esau embraces Jacob. Jasher focuses on the invisible spiritual mechanisms. Esau's hostility is overridden by an angelic presence. This is actually consistent with the broader biblical pattern. We see this again in scriptures. God resists Laban from harming Jacob in Genesis 31:24. God restrains Abimelech for touching Sarah. We saw that in Genesis 20. God restrains Balaam from cursing Israel. We'll see that in the future in the book of Numbers. So Jasher simply applies the same motif to Esau. Symbolically, Jasher intensifies the theme of Jacob as the protected prince. That's what we're seeing here. In Jasher's version, Jacob is not just returning home. He's returning as a divinely guarded prince. There's a spiritual aspect to all of this. Esau's collapse is not reconciliation. It is recognition of Jacob's spiritual rank. The falling on the neck becomes the older brother yielding, the aggressor being disarmed, the rival being subdued, and the covenant line protected by heaven's army. This hug is not affection, it's forced peace. So, what's the gesture in Jasher? Not reconciliation, not affection, not brotherly warmth. It is, however, fear-induced submission, a collapse of hostility under divine pressure. It's a physical gesture that makes it's coming from an internal terror. So what he's feeling, this fear he's feeling from all of these angels that he believed are servants of Jacob, is causing this internal terror. It's a moment where heaven intervenes to protect God's covenant line. This is God's intervention to protect the covenant line. If we are walking in covenant, we can expect the same thing. The outward action is the same in Genesis. The inward meaning is completely different. Genesis is a surface reading, making it look like Esau changed his heart, and that it's spontaneous and emotional, while Jasher recordings of the story emphasizes spiritual protection for the Prince of God, Israel, through angelic intervention. Jasher tells us that Esau not only intended to kill Jacob, but also to take his wealth. He was after his belongings. So it wasn't too hard for him to accept the gift that Jacob had already offered him. He had already sent his son to do this previously, that we learned in previous chapters. We all know that this reconciliation was not permanent. We don't see it today. It was not the healing of a broken family relationship, but God's protection of the covenant line. This was not the prodigal-like embrace. It was the aggressor subdued and heaven enforcing the covenant promise. I want you to see this in your own life. Heaven enforces covenant in your life. So why the two differences in the presentation of the story? Genesis describes what the human eye sees, and Jasher describes what the spiritual realm is doing behind the scenes. I think that makes perfect sense. One is reporting what is seen and observed. The other is reporting what's happening behind what we see. We see things all the time, and we never understand the spiritual implications behind them. We need God to give us wisdom and discernment to see what's behind what we see. Jacob is the prince with God protecting him in heaven. Esau knows that Jacob is protected and he is not to be touched. This is not intellectual recognition. It's instinctive recognition. Esau never understood the power of the covenant. He's never got that. He's never had an understanding of it. He never understood the birthright or the prophetic destiny or even angelic wrestling. He doesn't get any of that. But he does understand that Jacob is untouchable, backed by power greater than any human strength. He sees that Jacob's protection is supernatural. So he understands, he recognizes that there's a divine backing, but he doesn't understand his identity. Some believe that Esau saw the armies as angelic beings. Some think he actually knew these were angels. That would change everything about how Esau approached Jacob from now on. If that's true, then Esau would know that Jacob was protected by God, that he carried divine authority, and that Jacob's power was actually supernatural. Esau recognizes divine power, not divine purpose. He's focused on recognizing Jacob's rank, but not on his calling. He doesn't understand calling. And he recognizes God's presence, but not God's plan. He doesn't understand or recognize or get any of this. This fits biblical patterns of unbelievers that recognize divine authority even if they don't understand it. Like Abimelech recognizing that God was with Abraham. Pharaoh recognizing God was with Jacob. Nebuchadnezzar recognizing that God was with Daniel. They didn't understand covenant, but they recognized that God was with these people. And the Philistines recognizing that God was with David. They don't understand covenant theology, but they recognize divine power. And that's what's going on with Esau at this moment when he hugs Jacob's neck. Jacob had no idea how God would rescue him, but he fought in the spirit with all of his strength. He was not lazy. He didn't say, what will be, will be. I prayed about that. It's going to be okay. God made me a promise, and I have no need to wrestle. Some people will say that. God also has a way of escape for us in every situation. But are we willing to wait on God to know what that is, or to wrestle with him, or to spend time with him to know what it is? Therefore, my dear brothers and sisters, stand firm. This is 1 Corinthians 5:58. Stand firm. Let nothing move you. Always give yourself fully to the work of the Lord, because you know that your labor in the Lord, it's never in vain. You're going to have a payday for your standing. There hath no temptation taken you, but such is common to man. But God is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that you are able, but will with the temptation also make a way to escape, that you may be able to bear it. That's 1 Corinthians 10:13. This walk is work. Give yourself wholeheartedly to the task. Why? Because you trust him. You know that your efforts are not in vain. Jacob's labor and struggles, they weren't in vain. He didn't know how God would act. He just believed that he would. Living for Jesus, Yeshua, it's not a walk in the park. It requires effort. There's work to be done. And we must not become weary in well-doing. We cannot waver from our convictions or be lazy or lackadaisical in our walk with the Lord. Ask God to open your eyes. He wants you to see. He wants you to be encouraged, and he wants you to walk in boldness. Recently, in prayer, and some of you have heard this story before, I saw a ring of fire surrounding our home, which comforted and it encouraged me. I realized that this ring of fire was protecting us and our property. We were safeguarded even before I was aware that the fire was present. I didn't know that fire was there. It wasn't until God opened my eyes to see it. Despite our lack of knowledge about it, the ring had been there around our house long before I could see it. God is at work, even if we don't perceive it. Ask him to open your spiritual eyes. He says that you have them. Father, open the eyes of our understanding and help us to see more clearly. Ask him to send his forces on your behalf of your family, and on behalf of our country. He's working. He is the commander. He is Yahweh Sabaoth, the Lord of hosts. Meaning myriads upon myriads of angels. Has warring angels and forces. He has messenger angels. He has protective angels. So dig into your arsenal of weapons and utilize the angelic forces that you have yet to learn to tap into. See that you do not despise or think less. This is Matthew 18:10. See that you do not despise or think less of one of these little ones. For I say unto you that their angels in heaven are in the presence of and continually looking upon my face, the Father, who is in heaven. He never refers to you and I, as adults. Never. We're never grown up. Instead, he always calls us his little children. Therefore, as children, we have angels who are always beholding the face of God. They don't abandon us because we've aged or physically grown up. Ask God for eyes to see. However, even if you can't see, ask for faith to believe that you always have an angelic presence at your disposal. They're there, and they're battling in the spirit for the kingdom of God to come in your life and in the life of your family. What a God we serve, and he can deliver us in every situation and circumstances. So you're never too old to have guardian angels. You have more than one. On Jacob's deathbed, this is the blessing that he pronounced over his son Joseph and his sons. And he blessed Joseph, and he said, God, before whom my father Abraham and Isaac walked, the God which fed me all of my life long unto this day, the angel which redeemed me from all evil. So he's calling upon that angel on his deathbed. Bless the lads, and let my name be named on them, and the name of my father Abraham and Isaac, and let them grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth. So he hasn't just asked that his name, the name of Israel, will be placed on his descendants. He asked that the name of Abraham and Isaac were also placed on his descendants. He asked to place the name of Abraham and Isaac upon them, and that's the name which is on all of us who are of the household of faith. So from womb to tomb, the angels are ever present in our life. I hope from this that we have learned just because somebody hugs your neck doesn't mean they have great intentions, doesn't mean that they are a friend. Jesus was betrayed with a kiss. God is teaching us that he will war on our behalf, and he's cautioning us to know who we can trust and who we can't. Jacob did not trust Esau falling on his neck. He wouldn't tell him where he intended to go. He told him that he was going to meet him in Seir and that he would follow him when he had no intentions of doing that. So just because somebody pretends to be reconciling with you or making everything right, don't unload your heart or your knowledge or what God has spoken to you unless he tells you to. He wants to protect you. If Esau would have known that Jacob wasn't coming along with him, he would not have left him alone. He would have left servants with him or stayed there. because Esau's purpose is control. His heart was to kill his brother, and he had a temporary alteration in his purpose because of angelic intervention. God is the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. And his purpose for you is that you would be guarded as well, just like Jacob was. Jacob was a prince with God, but we are kings and priests before our God. We are a royal priesthood and a holy nation before our God. And if you think we don't have angels, you need to ask God to open your eyes, because they're there. We have a warring multitude on our behalf. So, Father, I ask you to take this word, to bless those that heard it today and all those that hear it in the future. Drive it deep into our heart, Father, that we are not alone. There's ever present. There's a whole new realm that we can tap into that we've never done before, or maybe not done well. Teach us, Father, to constantly walk in your presence, to be mindful of you and all that you've done, and that we are heirs of Abraham. We are the seed of Abraham, and we give you praise and thanksgiving for that in Yeshua's mighty name. Amen. Thank you so much for staying with us to the end. I just love this chapter in Genesis and also in Jasher. They're just so powerful. I pray that this changes your life, that it encourages you, that it makes you supernaturally attuned to the things that are going on behind the scenes. May God bless your week. We're praying for you here at Mind the Messiah, each and every one of you that subscribe and that are listening to these teachings. May God bless you richly. Give us a thumbs up, like, share, and a subscribe. And please leave your comments below. We'd appreciate it. Yahweh bless you.